All right. All right, I'll call this city council work session to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 at 4:32 PM. Our first item of business will be roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilwoman Strader,
Here.
Councilman Overton,
Here.
Councilwoman Perot, Councilman Hoagland.
Here. Our next item is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Strader,
I move that we pull off item number 8.
we'll do adoption of the agenda and then consent agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second?
We have a motion, a second to adopt the agenda as published. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any nays? We have adopted the agenda. Now up is consent agenda.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Strader,
I move that we move item 8 off the consent agenda for discussion tonight.
we will move item 8 off the consent agenda. So for the remainder of the consent agenda, what's your pleasure?
I move that we approve the remainder of the consent agenda except for item 8 for the president to sign and the clerk to attest.
Second?
We have a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda with item 8 removed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. Next up is the item moved from consent agenda, item 8. This is a subrecipient agreement between the City of Meridian and Jesse Tree of Idaho for emergency housing assistance grant funds. It is an amendment to the current agreement. So Mr. Neri, if you could give us some information, please.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council. So the Jesse Tree agreement that the person that inquired about is already in place, has been in existence since October. This was discussed last year during the budget process. You may recall the director of Jesse Tree, Ali Rabi, came and spoke to you. The money is being allocated out of ARPA funds. So that's the American Rescue Plan Act. And so those funds are a different set of funding than some of the things that the person that wrote the email had concerns about. One was whether or not it conflicts with Section 8 funding and Section 8 housing. It does not. So intentionally, it's an allowed use to have another additional source. And in fact, in the agreement with Jesse Tree, they are directed to go look for additional sources so that all of the funding for rental assistance doesn't come just from the ARPA funds that they're being provided. The only purpose of this addendum was simply to allow a larger draw on the account versus a smaller one. So they didn't have multiple reasons, have to come back for multiple changes for that. If the amount was over 5,000, I think was the original one, they could do more. So that was the only intent of why we're here. This isn't to change the agreement. The agreement is already in place. So I can answer some of the questions that were raised of concern. One was, again, this conflicts with Section 8. It does not. The ability to use these funds in addition to other sources of rental assistance out there in the community, whether it be at the federal level or the state level, is allowed and actually encouraged to be done. Question was asked about whether or not these funds are being used to pay legal expenses on evictions, and the answer is no. Jesse Tree doesn't do that. They only provide the rental assistance to hopefully get people out of the eviction arena, but not the legal service cost that goes with it. If there is one, they do not pay for that. That's what legal aid does. There's another source out there for that type of assistance, but the Jesse Tree is not. There was a concern about the Housing First as an approach to assisting people that were concerned that it's a low barrier for Housing First shelters. Again, it's encouraged to try to get people out of homelessness and houselessness into some type of other means. So that's the intent of the program that the city agreed to when we entered into this agreement with Jesse Tree. It says, the concern was that it wasn't clear to the person asking that the funds could only be used for people that reside in Meridian. It specifically stated in the agreement that it is only for people that reside in Meridian. So that is a requirement of that. So they do have to show that as Jesse Tree draws on these funds, that where the money is going. The concern was that there's, again, this concern about double dipping. Again, it's not double dipping. It's encouraged to find as many resources as possible to assist people to get out of this situation. That's the whole intent of this program, along with Section 8, along with other programs that are provided. So that was the intent. Also, there was a desire for a cap by this person. Again, the council discussed that, and the intent was we want to move the caps so that way it can be much more assistance, a little bit more nimble, and be able to be more fluid. So that was the intent of it. I think that pretty much is most of the concerns that are raised. That again, it was concerning that it was being used for legal assistance. It's not. The concern primarily that's being used in conjunction with other funds. That's the intent. Yes, it is supposed to be used with other funds. The concern was that it was being used to create this lower barrier for people to access it. Yes, that was the intention, is to try to get people out of this situation. So all of that was discussed. That's what all is in the existing agreement that we have. This addendum doesn't change any of that. All of this is change the cap limits. Again, it still has to get monitored. It still has to get reported. The city does have its eye on it as well. So it isn't something that is being done without the city's participation and knowledge. I can answer any other questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Any further questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Strader.
Just a couple comments and then I'll make a motion. So I think to summarize, so key takeaways for the individual who reached out to us about the agreement. The agreement is already in place. It keeps the existing services that Jesse Tree provides the city in place. That was done at the time of the agreement. And it's not meant for the purpose of tenants avoiding an eviction for other reasons other than financial. And so I think that's important. You know, I've been a multifamily housing owner myself in the past. And I understand there are a lot of reasons that tenants could be evicted from their apartment, you know, lawful reasons. This grant and this agreement is not meant to address any of those concerns. It is simply meant to address financial need within the city of Meridian, and specifically the agreement is in place. The subrecipient agreement is not, is just an amendment to that agreement. So again, it's a contract we have in place. It was previously approved. Hopefully this answer from legal answered your questions, but I think, Mr. President, if Mr. Neri wouldn't mind following up with that individual in writing, just so that they have those answers in more detail in an email.
Yes,
I think that would be appropriate because it's kind of hard to take away from a 5-minute discussion, all the legal nuances there. Anyway, with that in mind, unless there are other questions. Oh, okay. I'll yield then to Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Pro.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just wanting to understand the request from Jesse Tree to increase the amount that can be invoiced at any one time. Can you give a little more information on, were they running into challenges with just the timing of invoices and it's just sort of an administrative thing? Or can you kind of help us understand why there was a request to go above 25,000 in any given time period for their invoices?
Mr. Neri, you or
I was to say, Mr.
Daniel.
Torres, maybe I'll answer that particular question.
Daniel Torres, welcome.
Thank you. It really is to speed up the process. So when we set up the contract, it was limited to $25,000 draws, and it was limited to reporting quarterly. Their first submittal was a total of $50,000 and change. And they had it split up between 3 different requests to make it fit within the $25,000 cap. So it was really just to make it easier for them to submit all at once. And in some follow-up that we did with them, we have better clarification of what the money is being used for. So I feel like they've satisfied the reporting requirements. And again, it's just to make it easier to submit all in once.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Pro.
So what they are invoicing the city for is service that's already been provided. It's not service that's going to be provided in the future. And they have connected that service with individual help.
Correct. So
To
everything's
Meridian
itemized
families.
by individual.
Okay.
It states the purpose. And again, I should also point out that they started a month late in the time it took us to approve the contract. It was envisioned that the program would be 12 months ending by I think, September 30th of this year. And they didn't get started till October of 2022. So they started behind the gun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any
Mr.
other
President?
comments? Councilwoman Strader.
I move that we approve now item 8, the First Amendment to the October 18th, 2022 subrecipient agreement between the city of Meridian and Jesse Tree of Idaho for emergency housing assistance grant funds.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
We have a motion, and a second to move to approve item number 8. Is there any further discussion? Not, Mr. Clerk, call a roll, I think. We'll go ahead and call a roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Strader,
Yeah, aye.
Overton,
Aye.
Burrow.
Aye.
Hoagland.
Aye. All ayes, motion carries. Okay, next up, item 14, Garrett, Meridian Pool update and fee proposal. Go ahead and dive right in.
All right, sounds good. Mr. President and members of council, thank you for having me today. I'm here to kind of give you an update on obviously the pool operations of 2022, so last summer. There's 3 things I want to try to accomplish tonight if possible. First one being, give you an overview of what happened last year. Second being, kind of get your guys' feedback on the private fee swim lesson or private swim lesson fee proposals that'll be discussed tonight. And then get your feedback on the proposed schedule and just kind of talk through some of that stuff. So with that, like President Hoagland said, we'll dive right in. And Chris, I think I can just control this by the arrows, right? Notice the ripple effect with the pool. So try to get a little bit creative. So to start off with some key dates that I listed here from last year, 2 of them that aren't listed on here are the operations and maintenance agreement with Ward. So Ward, just for reference, for those who don't know, is the West Idaho Recreation District. We signed that agreement, or council signed that agreement in discussion mid-February. We ended up hiring Willow Spurlock, our aquatics coordinator, middle of March. And then really hit their items were done during season, which yes, we'd prefer to have it all done prior to season, but they weren't critical for the operation. So we got those done during the season. Pool capacity, we started with a capacity of 2021 and we increased it as midway through the season. The big thing was swim lessons. We offered swim lessons to over 1,100 kids, right? And that's a big deal. And to kind of reference the school district calendar and how it fluctuates here and there is we try to offer sessions, either 4, 5, or 6 sessions a summer. Sessions are 2 weeks long. Basically swim lessons are, there's 8 days of 30-minute lessons, if that makes sense. Session is 2 weeks. We try to offer as many as we can. This year, based on our schedule, we're going to get 5 sessions of swim lessons in based on the current schedule. With that, one thing that we're really excited about this year is we want to open swim lessons up for the Care Enough to Share program that we have. That's the scholarship program for those that may have struggled to afford swim lessons or other programs through our recreation department. So in doing that, the Care Enough to Share program, it's pre-qualification. So we need to get information from them prior to them calling to register. So once we get that stuff lined out, they can register over the phone, or we'll do in-person registrations for them as well. So we're working strategically to let that happen. I can tell you the challenge is those swim lessons, once they're open on, like last year on the 8th, they filled up within 30 minutes. I mean, the demand for that is so fast to where it actually, over our Rec 1 software, scheduling software, registration software, it actually overloaded their server, and we had some issues with that day. So we have to let them know, hey, we're going to have a big surge of registration. So the demand for swim lessons was incredibly high. So we were able to service over 1,100 kids. So that was an accomplishment. One thing that we implemented this year for the first time ever at the Meridian Pool that we know of is a swim test. So what that is when kids get there for the public open swim, they go through a quick swim test, which we put them in the water, they swim and go through there. There's some criteria that Willow, our aquatics coordinator, put together that allows them to go into different areas of the pool. For the big pool, we split into 3 different areas. Obviously, we have a shallow end, kind of a middle shallow, 4 to 5 feet deep, and then obviously the deep end where the high dive and the low dive is. So Willow put together that criteria, her guards established that, trained them, got them to go through the test. And they went from over 60 plus jump in rescues to 6 last year. So that's a huge improvement. That's really kudos to Willow and putting those criteria for each one of those in there. Where there's some backlash on it, like, well, I've always been able to go out the deep end, this and that. Yes, a little bit, but once Willow or myself had to explain to some parents and or some kids what it was and why they were doing it, it's a safety thing. Really, it's a 100% safety thing. And kudos to Willow again and her staff is if the kid couldn't get to the deep end, they would say, hey, work on these things to get you to the deep end. So they would give parents and or kids just coaching techniques on what they can work on, whether during the open swim in the shallower end or when if they do it at home or their HOA pool, what have you. So the program was very, very successful. Started out, I'm not going to say rough, but we had some tweaks throughout the season to make it better, more efficient throughout the season. So it really turned out great. But from 60 plus to 6, that's pretty good. That's literally 1 or more a day to 1 a week or less than a week. So that was a huge improvement. Staffing, everybody knows the staffing criteria now and the crunch that we're having right now, right? So last year we want 65 to 70 guards. That is our goal. That's what we want. That keeps us open 7 days a week. And that is our ultimate goal. That's what Ward had back in 2019, right before COVID, right? So we want to get back up to those numbers. Last year, we were able to hire 39 guards. Now we probably had 42, 43 apply. We ended up hiring a lot of them. Some of them didn't work out, but we ultimately had 39 guards through the whole season last year. And that is including Willow, because Willow's trained through all that stuff. Going to the next one. This I'm sure will get a lot of discussion, but in short, this kind of tells the story of where we want to get. And this was Ward's schedule. So as you go with the more guards, the more we offer, right? The goal is to get a swim lesson, public swim balance, the best that we can, right? If we have the 65 guards, we're open 7 days a week, rocking and rolling with parties and open swim and public swim and swim lessons and all the above. As we grow, last year in 2021, the far left, the 35 to 45 guards, that was Ward's schedule. We took on that same schedule this last year with 39 guards. So we kind of fit right in that range there, right? So we did that. As we grow, we did hear that, yeah, we want more public swim. And honestly, we do too. We do want that. As we move on, the next goal right now is we hope to have 45 to 55 or more. But if we were to get to 45 or 55, you can see right there in the green, the 7:30 to 9:30 public swim. We're just listening to feedback, not only from council, but also from participants and people that are at the pool. From what I heard last year is, why can't we be open weekends? We would love to be open weekends. And I would completely agree with you. We would want to be open weekends. So in my mind, I would work with Willow based on staff and availability, what we'd have. I would want to at least talk about moving that evening public swim Monday through Friday to save those guard hours and open on a Saturday, right? If we can do that, that's what we would want to do. So we're at least giving that opportunity for public swim on a weekend when families do have stuff. Now on weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, parents and other people do have other activities, right? Baseball, basketball, volleyball, whatever it may be, church groups, whatever that we, weekends, but we at least want to have that offering on a weekend. That is a goal that we want to have. So this is kind of what Ward had set in place. We want to make some minor adjustments here and there if we have that opportunity regarding staff. So please keep that in mind as we go through this. And at the end, I'll answer some questions on this if there is any with this. So hope that all makes sense there. Moving on to pool projects. See if I can keep up here with my notes. Oh, I should say, going back to this, and maybe I did say this, but we already have 30 applications turned in for guards, which is a really, I don't want to jinx anything, but that's a lot farther than we were last year at this time. So it's promising, and we're going to keep pushing for that. We're working on getting banners made. We're still working on social media blats and blitz. We're going to job fairs. I think we just got back from one, or it was Willow and other staff went to those things. I should give them kudos and credit where it's due, but we're doing job fairs, social medias. we're doing mailers, we're hitting the schools again, and then we're going, like I said, we're going to a BSU is hosting a job fair here shortly as well that we're going to be going to. Sorry if I skipped that over or duplicated that, but moving on to the projects. So these are the projects we finished. Some of these happened during season, like I'd mentioned before, based on contractor availability and just the time crunch to get things done prior to the season. But all the critical items were done previous and done right before we opened the season. But you can kind of see here that the big UV systems, that was a big undertaking. We got that taken care of during the season. It was awesome. The 88 chairlift, that thing had been broke just since right before COVID. And that was one of the things I said, that has to be, we have to get that done. So that was one that I took on personally and got it done. And it was done prior to the season opening. So that was a really good thing. The pool slide, that we did an examination of that slide before, and there's actually 3 slides in the big pool, 1 in the baby pool. The double slide, if you're familiar with the pool, one of them had some pretty good cracks in it to where if a kid went down there, it wouldn't end well. It was some sharp edges there, we'll say. So our park staff came to the rescue and helped us basically close it down, but they ordered a piece, and that piece was 12 weeks out from once we realized it was broke. So we went without one of the slides last year, and it's fixed. It's getting fixed this year. The park came in, and our park staff's putting it in prior to us opening this year. So that'll be all done. The pool automation system, this is something I highlighted here. This is something that is really helpful to a certified pool operator. Last year, I did get my certified pool operator recert. I was in a previous job, certified pool operator, and got that. And what that automation system does is if we're low on chemical, it emails me and also emails our contractor to where I know that here at City Hall, my email dings, regardless if it's low or high or whatever it may be. I get emails at midnight and at noon and lets me know what it is. And it's tracking what our chemical levels are. And that I can tell you that last year that saved us from possibly being shut down for the next morning. I got an email about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and our chemical level, when I say chemical, chlorine levels was very low, right? It was still existent, but it was very low. So I had to run down there and I changed out chemical stuff, and we got the chemical back up and running. If I didn't, the next morning we get there to test the water for swim team at 5:30 in the morning, and the chemical's low, we can't allow them to get in. And that just kind of snowballs. One, parents and participants are upset, and you get the snowball as we go through, and it affects swim lessons and all the way through the day. So that really helped us in that sense. And that happened a couple times, so having that email presence, it really allows us to stay open more. And it also alerts we have a maintenance agreement with Superior Pools. They get alerted as well. So if it happens on a weekend or whatever, if I'm not checking my email, I'm on vacation, there's always that backup that it gets checked. So that was a really good upgrade for us. You can see here in the picture there, if I zoomed in, it got blurry. So you can see the corrosion and some of the leaks that it had on the chemical feeders from the tanks into the system, the corrosion there. So we got all those replaced and redone. The secondary catch basins for chemical spillage, if there is any, that was there, and those were replaced as well. And then throughout the summer, some of those big umbrellas we had to get repaired and replaced. So that stuff all got taken care of throughout the season and during the season, if not before. So moving on to the next one. This is something you guys were familiar with, is the 1 meter dive. So we ultimately had to make the decision to take that out last year. We struggled, I struggled. We still had a high dive. We still had 2 of the slides operational plus the kiddie pool slide, but everybody wants some 1 meter dive too. And I say 1 meter, it's the low dive, 3 meters, a high dive, just for reference there. You can see the base, what it looked like. We deemed that not safe, so we had to pull it out. I thought that was going to be our biggest complaint, concern, and issue all year. And honestly, I didn't get one person ask me about it. And same with Willow on site every day. Not one person asked about it, to my understanding. So kind of out of sight, out of mind, we'll see. But that is scheduled to be installed within the next month, hopefully, and again, pending contractor availability. But the goal is to get out there this next month in March and get it installed and done. And realistically, per their contract, the contractor has until May 1st to get it installed. So March, April, it should be installed. And And then the rim around the pool, it was chipped and painted probably 5 different colors all around the pool. So we're getting that dressed up and clean and repainted this April as well, when the pool cover comes off, because the pool cover currently covers that. So you can't see it. So with that, I kind of wanted to quickly touch base on some key dates for this year, 2023. So pending we get all these possible or proposed swim lesson fees approved, or not necessarily approved tonight, but kind of get a head shake of where we're at. We'll post them and come back to you here in the month of March to get them approved. And we want to open swim registrations or swim lessons up April 7th. The pool cover comes off April 13th, April 14th. De-winterization starts the 17th. Very similar schedule to last year. With that opening day right now is scheduled for June 5th. Here I kind of posted the positions that are available right now. That's what we want. We want 65 plus guards. When I say lifeguards, those are also swim instructors. Guards and swim instructors are kind of one of the same. So we train all of our lifeguards to become swim instructors as well. So, and that's to teach swim lessons. With that, move on to the next one. This is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So pool fees. Just day open swim, just for public swim drop-in use, it's $2, $3, or $4 is kind of where we're at. I can tell you that those fees are very similar to what our neighbors are, Boise and Nampa. That's right in the ballpark with those. The season pass, the family pass is $160, and that's for a family of 4. You can see in red there is the new proposed fee. It's just an individual fee, and to come up with that number, we divided 160 by 4. Right, simple math there. So we got the $40. The swim lesson fees, the group lesson is $45 per kid. Private lesson is $100. Semi-private with twins. That's where a lot of the twins happen. I have twins myself. They went through that program. It was awesome. Tell you what, having twins and be able to go to the same swim lesson, have them do that, it was great. So the semi-private lesson for the twins, or for 2 children, is popular, but not as popular as a private one-on-one. So we do still want to offer that semi-private lesson there. So you can see the proposed increases are really just to the private lesson and the semi-private lesson. And the reason for the proposed increase is for it to match up with our current cost recovery pyramid that we all just discussed a few months ago on this and that. That aligns with private lessons where it comes into. I will tell you that the group lesson at 45 does align with, honestly, the top pyramid, and also aligns with the middle pyramid. So that still aligns with what it needs to be. That's why there's no proposal for the group lesson. With that, I can stand for questions. That's not me either. That's
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Pro,
I have 3 or 4. Can I go for it?
go ahead.
Okay, since we just discussed the fees, I have a quick question there. So just for clarification, open swim is just one individual session, and then the season pass is for open swim through the whole season. Okay, so that's, both of those are open swim times.
correct. Just to clarify, yes, open swim and season passes, yes, are for the public swim times.
Okay, so if a individual has a season pass, that they would pay that in addition to the swim lessons. So it's not, the swim lessons are not covering
Correct.
open swim. They're 2 totally separate things.
Correct. Great question. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow, it's cheaper to swim than it is to get a Starbucks, huh? Okay, so so on the new proposed fee for the individual, $40, that would include all open swim times. If the city decides to increase or decrease the open swim times based on staffing, how does that work out for the member of the public who paid that fee?
So if we were able to offer more public swim, is what you're saying?
Actually, the question would be is if you offered less, so more would be great, right? More options are great. But if at some point we lose some staffing over the summertime and we have to cut back that evening open swim or possibly a Saturday swim, is that just, is there something that's sort of disclosing that to the the season pass holder up front that says, hey, this is a possibility. And you realize when you pay this fee that we may have to adjust the times based on staffing, just to kind of let them know that, you know, if they're buying this under the assumption that they're going to be able to go on the evenings or the weekends, and then that's taken away, we may have a few people that have questions about it.
That's a great question, Mr. President, Councilwoman Pearl. How we kind of do the season passes and things like, we establish the bare minimum schedule, right? So we say, hey, we know you're going to have open swim from the 1:30 to 4:30. So buy your pass based on that time. If we can increase it, we will. And that's just a bonus for you to get more public hours, if that makes sense. So we kind of sell it as, hey, this is what your minimum is going to be. And that's kind of what our minimum is. If you remember that schedule I put up. So to answer your question, that's kind of how we sell it. If we have to drop back farther than that, I think at that point we would have our discussion with our director and as well as finance and probably you guys to say, hey, we're offering less. Should we prorate this? How can we do that? That type of thing. So that's kind of how I would probably handle it, to be fair and equitable to those that have already bought that. Yes.
So is that the expectation for the season, that we would offer the open swim times that are in that lowest staffing to time frame ratio based on last year?
Correct. Yes. So we would offer that public swim from 1:30 to 4:30 and just tell people that, hey, we would love to grow this, you know, and those are the fees that that Ward had proposed way back when, right? So that, yes, to answer that question, yes. Based on that minimum time, that's what we would sell it at.
And we would anticipate that the website would be updated if we were able to. So in other words, at the beginning of the season, you're going to make that decision at the beginning of the season. It's not going to fluctuate as the season goes on. Okay. Okay. So it's not going to be like weekly. We might have some, okay, based on our staffing.
To that point, we want consistency, right? That way parents know, hey, little Johnny can go down on Saturdays and get there. We want the consistency. So, and we want the consistency in swim lessons and everything above, right? So yes, we want to make that, we want to establish that soon. And what's nice now is we're with the city websites is it's instantly updated. So we've been working with IT to get that stuff done, and IT's been great with it. So yes, to update stuff online, we'll know our full staffing numbers when we start the training or right after the training about May 9th, right in the middle of May, and we can update things as we go. But yes, to establish stuff now, we're kind of putting the minimum schedule we know we're going to be able to do. As we grow, then we'll open up more. So yeah, and that'll be updated instantly. As soon as we know.
You mentioned the Saturday swim versus the evening swim. I think the Saturday swim is a great idea because, you know, evening, you may have a family that has 3 different ages, and maybe the oldest ones can go in the evening, but the youngest one has to go to bed. You've got dinner times that people usually eat later in the summer. So I like that idea of the Saturday. Also, only having 2 hours when you haul all the stuff down there, and then you have to, you know, pack it all back up. You really only get like everybody changes and all that. You get like an hour, you know, really with everything. So I think the Saturday swim is a better option if it's possible. Can you quickly go over? It seems to me like 55 guards is a lot. So are they just having like part-time shifts? Are there like a dozen on site a day? How does that work?
That's it, Mr. President, Councilman Pearl. Great question, because as teenagers, it seems like some of them want to work part-time. Some of them want to work 40 or 50 hours, right? Some of them want to work 20, and they kind of know that. But then also a lot of them are like, well, I'm going to be gone these 3 weeks. Or I'm going to be gone these 2 weeks, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? Or whatever. All those things factor in when it comes to that, right? And doing that on site at one time, we'll just use public swim, for example. We have a minimum of 15 guards on site at one time. 16-ish if you count front office, 16 to 17. That's all at one time, right? So that's a lot of hours in the day and this and that, plus the breaks in between. So yes, a lot of things factor into that, but it's basically availability. Now, if we get into where we get 55 guards on the middle schedule and all want to work full time, well, okay, we'll open up more, right? So this is just kind of historically what they've been able to do with this many guards. So yes, just know that we want more. So if our guards are wanting to work more hours, we will open on those weekends for consistency, right? And getting those done.
What is the, based on the capacity, what is the guard to swimmer ratio? Just curious.
Really, there's really not. So the capacity of a pool is determined by surface area of a water, then depth comes into play, and then the number of amenities comes into play. And it's a mathematical equation to go through. My mathematical equation from the Meridian pool is about 263 people, right? Others will argue with me on what it could be in the depth and this and that. And there's a slope of the pool as it gets deeper and who can be in this and that, right? And then where our amenities are and where our amenities are located affects certain areas. So some would say that, oh, well, no, I'm calculating 273 people. And I'm calculating 263, right? Regardless, we don't want to ever be over capacity and have somebody get hurt or injured because that's just not a good thing to do, right? We want to stay at our capacity or a little lower. But that's how capacity is, yes, determined. It's not necessarily, there's not a special magical like, oh, 35 people to one guard. It's certain areas of the pool, and they have different sites, and they have to be able to go, if they have to be able to diagnose if somebody's, drowning or floundering within like 3 to 4 or 5 seconds, that's probably more of a Willow question. She's the one. And honestly, going through this, Willow, there's a picture of Willow in here. So if you see her, you kind of know who she is and say hi to her. She really made my job easier last year in the short time that we got to take over the pool and get things going. She was super organized, ready to go. She's the one that trains the guards, schedules the guards, does everything with the guards. And she runs a pretty tight ship because obviously there's a safety involved with that. And she can tell you exactly the rotations and how many guards have to be where and why they need to be there. So that's why we have the 15 on site. And it's time because there's blind spots in the pool we have to monitor. So there's really no, to get back to the capacity question, there's really no one guard to 35, whatever. It's based on the shape of your pool, depths of your pool, and those things. It's a great question.
Thank you for those details. I thought I was asking a simple question.
Yeah, sorry,
No, it's
my wife will
fine.
tell you I like to talk.
So if Willow is listening, thank you, Willow. Too bad she's not here this evening so we could recognize her. Okay, so the swim test that you mentioned, awesome. That sounds amazing. I have a brother who is in a wheelchair. And so that ADA chairlift is awesome because there are very few places in the valley where he has access to that. How do those swim tests work for individuals that may need to use the chair? Are there different skills that or abilities that a lifeguard would look for with someone in that situation?
So the lifeguards, to answer that question, Willow is probably the better one to answer those questions. But with my knowledge of a pool and being a certified pool operator and stuff, the chair actually straps you in and allows you to dip in the pool and stuff like that and move around. So when it comes to, you probably know this better than I do regarding with your brother, but there's different levels of what they can do in the water, right? So the lifeguard's going to look and ask that person to communicate with that person what they feel comfortable doing, and then obviously be there with them to operate that chair. So, I think.
So the chair, so they stay in the chair in this situation. They don't get out of the chair. Oh,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate
That chair allows them to be in the pool, cool off, swing around in the pool and things.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, congratulations on a fantastic first season. I was so curious to see how all it would work out. It sounds like it went better than we expected, which is amazing. And based on the year before, 39 guards is a huge success. So do we have a lot of returning this year?
Councilman President, yeah. So we've got probably half of maybe a little over half of the 30 that have applied are returners.
Fantastic.
We've already started those interview processes with that, but we're hoping to get more. And yes, we had a successful year, but I'm a competitive person and I want to improve every year and find efficiencies and things like that. So we still got a long way to go, but at the same time, it was successful. We didn't have anybody hurt. We had some guards, we operated the pool and it was good. We got a lot of projects done, but we're not done. So we want to keep getting better. And so.
Well, thank you so much for your commitment for it. I'm so impressed with I mean, just this report's fantastic. So thank you also for being willing to run over to the pool at off hours to do what needs to be done, and that commitment that you've made to this and kind of the ownership that you've taken of it. I thank you so much. It's
You're welcome. It's
very appreciated.
a good challenge. So it's good.
Council President?
Yes, Councilwoman Strader.
Oh, thank you. Just have a couple quick questions. Did we look at the market to determine the fees for private and semi-private lesson increases? How did we arrive at those figures?
Yes, to answer that question, Council President. So we did. So what we first did was looked at what our direct costs are, right? And we kind of calculated our direct costs based on kind of how we did the pyramid and where it would land. We need to cover our direct costs because it's a private lesson, right? So, but then on top of that, we didn't want to be the most expensive in town, all right? And be like, well, what's the going rate? By doing that, we can tell you that, bear with me here. We're proposing the 140 for private lessons. I can tell you that Roaring Springs right now is 154. So we're about $14 to $15 less than them. The YMCA offers a little bit different. They'll offer a certain amount per private lesson. We had to calculate based on our 8 30-minute lessons, if that makes sense. And that's what Roaring Spring does. So that was a very good comparison. So 140 to 154. The YMCA does a little bit different. They do it per 30-minute lesson. And if you equivalate the 8, and it's probably not fair to the YMCA to do this because there's pros and cons and apples and oranges here, as I'm getting at, but a private lesson is a private lesson, is theirs would be equivalent like 288. So we would still be kind of right there. Boise and Nampa were right there last year. So we're right there we're right in the threshold of what Boise and Nampa were to our understanding. So,
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Strader, go ahead.
if you don't mind, I have a couple kind
Go
of,
ahead.
I'll just dive in. So it's not for one lesson, that includes multiple lessons. Could you just clarify how many like lessons it includes and what time frame?
absolutely. Yeah. So the time frame kind of depends. So in a private lesson, we offer 3, maybe 4 students, depends if it's semi-private or not, in per half hour in the day. So we start some lessons at 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, and so on, right? So we offer those lessons. We try to match it up with the parent, if that makes sense. So to answer that question, so the 140 would cover 8 30-minute classes.
Yeah.
For a total of 4 hours, if that makes sense.
Yes, that that does make more sense. Because I was just comparing it. I have kiddos in swim lessons twice a week throughout the year. And the pricing seemed off for one session, but it makes more sense if it's for multiple sessions. So that's helpful. And then with the cost recovery, so if we're going to be hopefully recovering more of our cost by increasing the fees for these private and semi-private lessons, do we then use that to just return funds to the general fund? Like how does it subsidize the other activities? Are we looking at increasing the pay for the guards this year? Like, help me understand how you're thinking about that. Because I'm looking at it like this should be offsetting something so we can get more usage out of it. Because I totally agree. I'd love to see weekends. I'd love to see parties, all that stuff. That'd be great.
Yeah, Council President. So yes, so basically what this increase covers is wages, is what it comes down to, right? So just for a little history on that, we're starting ours right now at $14.50 an hour, our guards. And that is, Nampa is hiring their guards at $14.36 an hour. Boise and Meridian are at $14.50 an hour. Roaring Springs is close to 15. And then the YMCA is at $15.50 an hour. So we're right with Boise. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we're close to the lowest, right? But just those cost increases. So Ward, when Ward was doing this back in 2018, they were paying $8 an hour. 2019, they were paying $9 an hour. Now we're up to $14.50, right? So that's not all the way down. I'm not a math guy, I'm a rec guy, but it's almost doubled, right? So in doing that, we felt like we needed to increase some of these costs, really just to cover those direct costs of wages to get people there. So that's really 99.9% of this increase is that.
That makes tons of sense. I appreciate you walking us through that because it felt like, all right, we want to expand our offering. The gating item appears to be the guards. So that's how you're addressing that, is through these increases to the private and semi-private fees. Well, just some feedback. First of all, congratulations on a successful start with the pool. I mean, really, you guys are knocking it out of the park compared to how it was operating before. I'm really excited. I feel like we could expand this. Swimming is a critical skill. It's a life skill. People need it to stay safe. I would hope that we could, increase our open hours. If we get more guards, that we could open up more swimming lesson spots for kids. If they're filling out within 30 minutes, then we're not serving the community as much as we could. So really appreciate all the work you're doing. I'm personally okay with the proposed increase in the fees. It makes sense to me. But thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, you'll kind of wanted to get ahead now before we publish these fees, and we'll come back here in the next couple of weeks. Probably, I think it's March 21st is where our target date is to have you guys approve the fees, and I'll come back up here and say, here's the fees, stuff like that. But
Garrett, I did have a question. And it goes back to that lifeguard swim instructor deal. Because, there's a lot of lifeguards in the area, and if they might be working at, say, the Y, and they want to pick up extra hours and just do Saturdays. Do you guys allow that sort of thing to happen?
Councilman President, great question. So yes and no. So to answer that question, so there's 3 different lifeguard certifications that you can go through. One is Ellis, which is what we are, as well as Roaring Springs. Okay, and there's another one that's a YMCA certification. And that's basically what the Y certifies, right? Then there's also American Red Cross. So there's 3 different certifications. So we're an Ellis facility. So if I were to, and I can tell you that Boise, Nampa, I believe Caldwell and BSU are all American Red Cross. The Y is the Y. And then, like I said, Roaring Springs and us are Ellis. So for American Red Cross to come and guard for us, we have to recert them in Ellis per insurances and liabilities and things like that, right? I can tell you that there's very little, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what the differences are by reading which ones are. To my understanding, Ellis goes in more in depth in the actual water saves things. The YMCA goes in the more depth in other things and this and that. So there's 3 different certifications. So to share guards, I went the same way last year. Like, okay, how do we get more guards? I'm good friends with Nampa, Boise, and so how can we, hey, if you have guards that need extra hours, whatever, can we share? And then the more I learned about it, I realized the 3 certifications and this and that, we certified them. Another thing is, so I don't think we're opposed to that, but I know with us, we're going to work our guards as much as we can to keep open for the weekends and stuff like that. And I think knowing that others are short-staffed as well when it comes to guards, I think they would be reluctant to share guards for more hours, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the summer, they're going to all be burned out if they're working 60-hour works, working at 2 different places, right? And there's only a handful of teenagers that want to do that, to be honest. But I think the window is still open for us to be able to do that and share guards with, say, Roaring Springs or here or whatever. But I know that everybody's looking for more guards. So hope that answers your question, kind of in a roundabout way. Yes and no. We're not opposed to it. It's just hard to do.
Okay.
That's a great question, though. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Garrett. Yeah, it's just interesting. How do you, especially in this world where that gig work and part-time and have some flexibility in their work-life balance in the summertime, how do you make it work and fit? So, and it's just, it's a competition out there for workers in this market.
It is.
Well, no. So yeah, just a thought on that. So Councilman Overton, any other questions or thoughts?
Yes, I thought I'd go last. Thank you, Mr. President. Garrett, great job. I guess I'm so glad that you brought in the fees from the other cities around us and the other entities that we deal with. I had the opportunity to look at that list when these were first being established and realize how we were fitting right in the middle. We weren't going to be the cheapest, we weren't going to be the most expensive, but we were definitely going to be within market. We wanted to make this work with the cost recovery for the pool as best we could. And I thought this was a great idea. I said, I don't know that you're ever going to satisfy everything that council wants or the public wants in open public swim time unless we can magically get 75 lifeguards. And hopefully we can hire as many as we need to get all that public swim time and open up the party room and take advantage of the entire facility you've got there at the pool. I also wanted to point out, Garrett, and really compliment you and your staff for what an amazing job you've done with the things that the public can't see. You showed a picture of some of the equipment that's in the locked rooms. And after going through those rooms with you and that tour with Director Sidaway and seeing how that room was beautiful, it was clean, it was well kept. All the equipment was top notch, being maintained. If I was a member of the public and I had an opportunity to see that, that would put a lot of confidence in me that I know that I've got a city that's really taking care of our children and all these kids that are getting swim lessons from the quality of equipment they're getting to use. It was fantastic seeing the stuff that nobody really gets to see, and what a great job you guys are taking care of that. So I'm fully supportive of this when it comes forward for a vote. I thought you guys have done a fantastic job with this pool. I don't think it's ever looked this good since probably when it first opened.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I got to pass the kudos on to Willow. You know, she's there. She lives there in the summer. I honestly try to stay out of her way the best I can, but thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Well, Councilman Overton, I hate to say it, but I can attest to that fact because I was there when it opened a long time ago. So anyway, Councilman Cavanagh, you joined us at 5:09. I had my screen minimized, didn't see you right away, but welcome. Any thoughts or comments, questions?
Thanks, Council President, and I echo the comments of my fellow council members on Garrett's presentation. Apologies for being fairly late this evening. Garrett, I think you covered a lot of the questions that I had kind of sent you I sent to Steve via email. I guess maybe just some suggestions for council to consider. One, I'm in full support of the proposed fees, and you'll have to forgive me. I think, like a lot of us, I take a certain amount of ownership in Meridian Pool because that's the pool where I learned to swim and where I've taught my kids to swim, and it's such an important community. And we've invested a lot in the facility, and so I'm of the mindset of I want to make it available to as many of our citizens as possible. And Garrett, if you touched on this and I missed it, my apologies, but can you share with council a little info about the demand for lessons and how there's a lot of excitement about kids learning to swim at Meridian Pool that it almost kind of overwhelms our system. Can you just maybe give the council a little flavor for that if you haven't already?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go over that one more time. No, not a problem.
So if you have, then skip past it. I see the smile on Councilmember Perot's face, which means you guys have probably already talked at lengths about it. And so I won't belabor the point. I want to be respectful for everyone's time. I guess just maybe a suggestion for council to consider, and I sent this to the Parks Director, because we have so much demand for swim lessons. A suggestion that I think that we should explore is particularly for maybe some more of the in-demand swimming lesson times, or times that maybe we wouldn't be able to provide because we don't have enough lifeguards, is that maybe we increase the rate for those lessons as a way to offset the cost of hiring more lifeguards. I hate to kind of equate it to surge pricing because I don't think that's the right approach, but if we were able to charge more and hire more lifeguards, that may be able to allow us to offer more lessons and be able to expand the services for the pool. And I really believe as much as we can have as many citizens in that pool as possible, that should be our priority.
Okay. Any other questions? I think that's something they can be watching for and thinking about for next year, Councilman Cavanagh. So
Yeah, thank you for those.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Pearl.
Just curious if the season pass holders from last year and those that signed up for lessons are going to receive an email or contact in some way, letting them know that there's going to be a fee change in a public hearing coming so that they especially can comment on those changes.
Council President, Councilwoman Pro, we haven't, but we can send through an email blast saying these fees are being proposed and hearing on the 21st. If that's the direction you'd like us to do, we can easily do an email blast.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Pearl.
Of course, I'd like to hear from my fellow council on that. percentage wise, it's 40% increase, right? And so as a parent, I probably would at least want a bit of a heads up before I were to go enroll my children again to know that there's that increase. And I just think it would be respectful to them and appreciative for, them coming back this year.
No, absolutely. And we can do that. Right now, the fees, TBD, to be determined, because we want to make sure we talk to you guys about it first.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. I think you've got the approval to move forward, and let's publicize it is always helpful. And of course, the agendas are usually out, are public anyway. So, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to let people know that, so they know, be prepared for somebody say it's sticker shock and it's like everything else that's going up, but
Sure. No, we'll absolutely do that. And I would invite, if you guys do want a tour, I know Councilman Overton, I took him on a tour with Steve. Happy to do that. I mean, there's some improvements there that are worth seeing, and gives us a little bit of chance to brag about what we've done. So thank you guys again for tonight. I appreciate it. I won't take up any more of your time, but thank you.
thank you, Garrett, and give Willow our thanks as well.
I will.
All right, council, that is the last item on the agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Strader,
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
there's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?